Hey everybody, I'm Den Haring. Welcome back to my channel, Fish Den 365, and welcome back to Topwater Tuesday. Today's bait is the Lunker City Slug-go. So we're going to talk about the Slug-go today. This is a very interesting bait. When it first came out, it was incredibly popular. It caught a lot of fish. And then the Senko came out some years afterward, and it seems like the Slug-go is somewhat gotten forgotten about. And it really is still a good, very effective bait. I often compare it to the Zoom Super Fluke or the Zoom Fluke, but the action is different. And so I did a video on the Super Fluke as a topwater lure. I will link that here. This bait is different than that in that when you rig this right, and this is talking as a topwater lure now, it has more of a darting motion. It darts from side to side, and it could be a pretty large sway side to side. You can make this bait dart 1, 2, 3, and then just let it drift a little bit, and it'll sink a little bit, and then when you twitch your rod a few times, it'll come right back up to the surface, and sometimes it'll just jump right out of the surface like it's scared, like it's trying to flee a predator. And so the Lunker City Slug-go as a topwater is something you don't want to ignore, because it's actually a very good bait, and it tends to work well for both largemouth and smallmouth bass. It's also a striped bass killer. When striped bass get a little shy, when they don't want a lot of noise on a topwater bait, the Slug-go really works well for stripers, and the 9-inch Slug-go works also, and especially people that fish saltwater. They like throwing that 9-inch Slug-go because I think it matches more the bait fish that are in the ocean, and for those bigger stripers. In freshwater, I prefer to throw this size. I don't know if this is, I guess it's a 6-inch Slug-go. I prefer this for the freshwater striper. It's closer to the size of the bait that they're eating in most freshwater environments. Let me show you how we rig this. So I have here an owner twist lock hook. This is how I prefer to rig the Slug-go when I'm fishing it as a topwater. It's got this little twist lock screw, and that just goes right into the head of the Slug-go. And it's important to get it in there as straight as possible. I want to make sure that I don't start off crooked, because that'll affect the action of the bait. And you just keep twisting it in there until you're right up to the hook. Now you got to twist this so that the hook will lay straight. In other words, you don't want the hook twisted this way or twisted that way. You want it so that it just lays perfectly straight. So I'm going to twist this just a little more. And there we have it. And then what I'll do is I'll use my thumb to figure out where I should put the hook through the belly of the bait and up through the back. So I use my thumb as a marker right there. So then I'm just going to take that hook and put it up through the belly and right through the back. Again, as straight as you can get it. You want it very straight through that back. That's the most important part. And you can see I got that pretty good and straight there on the back. That's very important. And so when I'm fishing this bait, if I'm just fishing it in open water, I'll leave the hook just like that. I'll leave it exposed because it just gets me a better hookup. Fish bites down on the bait, and it just makes it that much easier to hook up. So I'll leave it exposed like that. And if I'm fishing it in cover, maybe some brush or some pads or that kind of thing, fishing for bass, then if I want to make it a little more weedless, I can just bury that hook slightly into the plastic. It still comes loose if a fish presses on it, and so you have it weedless as that. The other nice thing about the Slug-go is the way the back is formed here. You can see it's actually ridged on both sides, so the hook kind of fits right in the middle, so it makes it fairly weedless even if you don't bury that hook point into the plastic. So that's, you want to make sure that it's straight, and you want to make sure that the bait is straight as well. Like if you store these and they have tails that are crooked, it won't work as well. But if you put it in hot water, you can straighten the tails on these things pretty nicely. Just get a pot of water, boil it, bring it off the boil so it's starting to cool down. Put your baits in there. This is true for all soft plastics, and it'll straighten the bait out for you, and then you can put it in back into a container that keeps it nice and straight, and you're much more likely to have better balanced lures. That these soft plastics will work a lot better when they're straight like that. So I like to fish this on braided line. I'll use 20-pound braid. You can use 30-pound braid, and especially when I'm fishing in open water, I'll use 20-pound braid, and I'll use a monofilament leader, 2 rod lengths of monofilament leader. 17-pound test is usually what I like to use, and that'll keep the bait up on the surface a little easier, and it just makes it a pleasure to fish. And if you're fishing in real heavy cover, you could always go a little higher on the braid and a little higher on the well, actually, if you're fishing extremely heavy cover like heavy pads and milfoil, you can go straight braid right to the hook. Fish aren't going to see it in that heavy cover. But if it's sparse and you feel like the fish can see that braided line, then you just go to heavier braid and then just use a little heavier monofilament as a leader, and you're covered that way. The kind of rod that I'll use for this, I'll usually pick a rod that's meant for worm fishing. That way you know you're going to have enough backbone to set that hook when a fish eats. So you want a good worm rod. 7-foot worm rod is usually one of the ways that I'll go. I'm not very tall, so anything more than 7 foot becomes a bit cumbersome for me. So for me, 6.5, 7 foot is what I would use worm rod to throw this Lunker City Slug-go. That's this week's Topwater Tuesday. Let me know what you think of the Sluggo. If you have experience fishing it as a topwater, I'd love to hear about it, because you can make this thing act and work a bunch of different ways, and you can really make it pop out of the water and really dance and dart. It's an interesting bait. It's somewhat been forgotten about. It's funny how you know, with the onset of the Senko and the fluke being super popular, super fluke being so popular, it doesn't seem like you hear much about the Sluggo anymore. And yet I think it's a very effective bait still. And I will be playing with it come spring again, when those topwater stripers aren't wanting the noisier topwaters. It's a good bait for that. Again, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about me as well if you would. If you think the videos are good and informative, let them know. I'm trying to grow the channel, always trying to get more subscribers. I appreciate everybody watching. It's great having the community that we've built up. If you have experience with the bait, like I said, please comment. Hope to see you on the water. And as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.